Juris Vodcast with Scott Pearce.
There's good news and bad news this week about voting and election integrity. The good news comes from San Luis Obispo, California, where we saw ballots counted with an open source voting software program. The bad news comes from New Hampshire, where more than 3/4 of the votes were counted in secret by a corrupt company using expensive machines and secret software. Here's the open source approach to counting the vote as applied in San Luis Obispo on January 12, 2008. The tabulation program consists of 100 lines of Python code. If you want to have a look at the code yourself, you can get it at jurisvodcast.com. The Open Voting Consortium's open source voting software was installed on each PC on top of the open source Linux operating system. After signing in, voters were directed to one of the 3 voting machines. The only interface devices were a mouse and a monitor. The voters would click on their selection, then click on the Print Ballot button. Nothing about the voter's selection was stored on the PC. The vote existed only on paper. Once the polls were closed, the ballot box was opened, in public of course. A PC with a tabulation program was hooked up to a projection screen monitor. 2 workers handled the ballots. One would read the name of the candidate who had received the vote, and the other would scan the barcode on the ballot. The vote would register on the screen, and supporters would cheer for their candidate. Everyone got to see each vote count. This vote in California was tiny, just a couple hundred votes, but it serves as a hugely important moment in our history as a democracy. Compare what happened in Central California with what happened in New Hampshire just a few days earlier. We can't trust the results of the New Hampshire Democratic Party primary election. More than 3/4 of the votes were counted by Diebold machines. Diebold machines are vulnerable and deficient. They use complicated, secret software to count votes, when simple, free, open-source public software does a more transparent and a more reliable job on cheap, old PCs. There were statistically significant disparities in New Hampshire between hand-counted and machine-counted votes. Hand-counted ballots favored Obama in roughly the same percentages as the polls everyone is ridiculing right now. This is not about winners and losers in any specific election. The issue is whether or not we are going to have clean elections. All of us who care about American democracy, from all parts of the political spectrum, must come together to demand honest elections. Here are the minimum requirements. 1. Voting machines must produce voter-verifiable paper ballots. 2. Vote counting should be done in public. And 3. Voting software should be simple and open source. The elections in San Luis Obispo were clean, open, and transparent. In a word, honest. The elections in New Hampshire were dirty, tainted by secrecy, and most of the votes were counted by one of the most disreputable companies ever associated with voting. The published results cannot be believed. Wait and see. It is easy to predict that serious irregularities will be uncovered if the New Hampshire vote is investigated. We have a fundamental right at stake here. Voting, the centerpiece of democracy. We're either going to have honest elections or we're not. The elections in San Luis Obispo can serve as a model for how the process should work. This is one case in which a hugely serious issue really does have a comparatively simple, inexpensive solution. For jurisvodcast.com, this is Scott Pearce. Thanks for your attention.
Juris Vodcast is a production of Nuclear Podcasting. Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives.